A friend sent me this tweet yesterday about duty sex that is blowing up on X. I think within 2 days it had over 5 million views, and the responses got a little dicey. So we're gonna check out the original tweet, read some of the wildest replies, and I'm gonna give my take as a sex coach that's helped thousands of women dealing with this exact same thing. So I'm gonna read the OG tweet. It says, "Duty sex for women is the equivalent of expecting a man to have sex without an erection. Having sex when you're not sexually aroused is gross and unpleasant. Women are not fleshlights. The problem is not a wife not agreeing to duty sex. The problem is a husband who can't or won't sexually arouse his wife." Woof. Okay, first let's just define terms. Duty sex is when sex is performed as an obligation or to avoid feelings of guilt, rather than as an expression of intimacy and connection. In the women that I've worked with, and in my own experience with just having sex to please my partner, or because I felt like I had to, it ruined the relationship. It led to avoidance and resentment and more disconnection, but I only partially agree with Jennifer's take. I definitely agree that women should not have duty sex out of obligation. But for women who have responsive desire, which is 85%, many of them don't feel a spontaneous urge for sex and actually do need to be open to exploring arousing sensual activities before they feel a clear desire for sex. With responsive desire, the body needs stimulation and sensation to become aroused before the brain gets on board and says yes to sex. So it actually would be the equivalent of men starting to engage in sexually connecting activities without an erection. The problem is not starting sex without an erection or without sexual arousal. It's in continuing when that's clearly not present or if there's no pleasure in the experience. The other issue I have with what Jennifer shared is that she's blaming men for not being willing or able to sexually arouse women. And on the piece of willingness, like, of course, for a sexual connection to work long-term, both partners need to be willing to learn what each other likes and co-create pleasurable experiences, but it is not a man's job to sexually arouse his partner. I think that frame is incredibly disempowering and discourages women from taking time to explore their own bodies, learn what they like, and then advocate for that. Think about it like this. Most men are getting even less sex education about women's bodies than women do. So how can we expect them to know our bodies and read our minds? Okay, let's read a couple of the reactions to this tweet. Buckle up because things are going to get a little rough. But before I do that, if you're liking the video so far, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content on sex and relationships. Okay, the next tweet. "Duty sex for women is the equivalent of men having to wake up every day to make money, even on days they don't feel like it." Here's the argument she seems to be making, that the agreed upon exchange in all relationships is sex for money. Men make money, provide financially, women make babies, provide sex and children. Historically, this is completely accurate. This was the foundational exchange of marriage and relationships for a very long time. And now, if that is the exchange that you agree upon with your partner when you enter into a relationship, good for you, that's totally fine, as long as both of you agree to it. But the landscape of relationships has changed so dramatically since the 1400s, and for the last 2 decades, a majority of US households have been dual income, and that percentage continues to increase. And a recent Pew Research survey reported that 88% of people get married for love and companionship. So what that means is the expectations of what relationships are meant to provide are not as black and white as they used to be. Ultimately, I do believe that relationships are transactional. We enter relationships because we have an expectation of what we will get out of entering that relationship in exchange for what we are giving. But many of us are still running some outdated cultural assumptions about what that transaction means and what the exchange is that we're making. And most couples are not explicitly agreeing to a sex for money trade. While making that trade doesn't have any inherent good or bad value, if there are assumptions in a relationship that aren't clearly specified, those unmet expectations and assumptions are what lead to relationship damage down the line. Which brings me to my next tweet. If a woman won't give you a firm commitment pre-marriage to sleep with you post-marriage, don't marry her. Make it a point to discuss it and get it on the table immediately before you tie the knot. Ask her to commit to your needs, and if she won't, don't marry her. It's a little problematic, okay? But the thing he got right is definitely talk about sex before you get married. Have sex, Talk about what you like, talk about what you want, the desired frequency, your hangups, your fears, your expectation, your sexual history. Having those conversations is essential. But no woman or man enters a marriage believing it is going to be sexless. I talk to hundreds of women every single day who feel lost and confused and upset and guilty because they want to have sex with their partner, but their body doesn't. They love them and they can't reconcile this issue. It's not a choice that they're making to not want sex. It's not something they're intentionally withholding, and it's something that they wish wasn't happening. Most of the women that I talk to who are struggling with low libido don't know what would make sex pleasurable or rewarding for them, which leads to a general level of dissatisfaction with their sexual experiences. And when you add that kind of scare rhetoric on top of the internal pressure that they're already feeling, guess what's going to happen to desire? Yeah, it's going to obviously tank further. The other thing that this tweet doesn't consider is that it is absolutely normal for desire for sex to fluctuate through different seasons of life. Grief, childbirth, mental health challenges, stress, body changes, lack of emotional connection, conflict, depression, anxiety, all of those things can contribute to a change in desire. A healthy commitment is not one where you agree to meet your partner's every single need forever, for better or worse. A healthy commitment is one where you align on values and vision and commit to open communication, collaboration, taking personal responsibility, and choosing to work through things when life changes. Let me read one more tweet from the same guy. This one's crazy. So he says, "Women say duty sex is bad. I agree, leave her instead. No woman will ever be able to make a compelling argument for a man to stay in a sexless marriage. You don't have to be miserable because she says you do." Again, let's just normalize desire fluctuating. Let's normalize there being a difference in sexual preference and relationship. Let's normalize working on your relationship instead of leaving at the first hint of challenge. Long-term relationship is a gauntlet for growth, and the only way to grow is by choosing discomfort and facing fears. If a marriage or a relationship becomes sexless, it's usually not because of incompatibility. The lack of sex is typically a symptom of something deeper that needs attention, care, and effort. And when you ignore, avoid, or even run away from that challenge, you miss an opportunity to strengthen the relationship through collaboration. I want to hear your reaction to this stuff, so comment below and let me know what you think of this conversation and these tweets. All sides are welcome. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.